Hello everyone and welcome back to Oblivion. Looking like a pretty dismal night.
Hello, we're all talking.
Let's see what our quest is, the most recent one.
About the Emperor's murder.
Alright, it looks like I have to go, pardon me, out to the waterfront. I wonder if I can get out this way. I can't remember. I think so. But I gotta get out to the waterfront and talk to that guy about his business being robbed. God, I have so much weight on me. It's because of this heavy armor. That's the problem. You really pay a price wearing heavy armor, and the price is
I'm here to
that
relieve you. What's your
in the long run, it's obviously better. Because when you get it up to 100, it no longer encumbers you, which is the only deficit to wearing heavy armor, is that it's heavy. It makes you slow, it makes you loud, and it weighs a lot. But once you get to 100, and only when you get to 100, it weighs nothing, and so that means that you can sneak around in it silently. It doesn't weigh anything, so that it's not encumbering you, and other stuff like this. As opposed to light armor, of course, where you're not facing those problems for the majority of the game. And then I think when you get your light armor to 100, it doubles the effectiveness of light armor. But light armor being twice as powerful still isn't as powerful as heavy armor. So it's not really, I don't know. I mean, if I was making a sneaky character, I would tend to just take my shoes off. So just listen right now. Okay, now let me take my shoes off. So that clunking armor sound stops. So if you want to be a heavy armor thief, you just take your shoes off.
You want something.
Until you get your heavy armor up to 100. It's a little tip for you there. Let me go talk to this merchant and be like, hey man, what's going on?
Greetings.
He's like, oh my god, you're so sneaky.
Quality merchandise.
I didn't even notice this gigantic
goods
orc
to
in
suit
shiny
your
steel
needs.
armor.
Oh, and perhaps you saw the sign outside? A slight mistake, you know. Bit of bad luck there. So, what can I do for you?
Break-ins.
I've lost a great deal of merchandise over the last few months. I keep replacing it, but they keep stealing it. New locks on the doors be damned. They always come at night after I've gone to bed. Maybe a mage transports them inside. You can just stay in the shop overnight. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to wait at the flowing bowl until this mess is settled. I know I can trust you to keep the place safe. Goodbye.
And this place is actually not that bad. It usually has a couple good things in here. And so once he leaves, I'm going to go ahead and rob this place. Let me save.
Looks like we've got a thief in our midst.
These guys are the thieves. And they just witnessed me stealing something and then they called me a thief. Classic. Oh god, I wish I could keep the same guy in front of me. There we go. There. I'm gonna go up the stairs. See, with the longsword, you're not gonna be able to, or with the claymore it's called, you're not gonna be able to step back out of range. What weapon do you have? Am I blind? Can I just not see? Didn't he have a longsword? Oh, there it is. Steel longsword. There we go. That's nice. I'll keep that. And let's get rid of some of this crap. Sweet. Other than those emeralds there, I don't think there's anything else really. Oh wait, no, I'm definitely gonna take that book. 50 gold book right there. Provinces of Tamriel, I'll take that as well. Oh, over encumbered. Oh, pumpkins, yeah. 10 pounds worth of pumpkin. Okay, cool. Oh, a couple of people fighting out here. Get him! Get him! Kill him! Alright. Where's the flowing bowl? I think it's over there. Dark elves are resistant to fire and also have the power of Ancestor Guardian. They summon a ghost, basically. Oh, he's right here.
Good to see you. Were you able to take care of my problem with break-ins?
Oh yeah, I certainly did. You got 3 dead bodies in your shop now.
Wonderful. But their names are familiar to me. All of those men have worked for me. Amazing. I even trusted them to open up the shop in the mornings. I can't imagine what turned them to a life of crime. Sad. Well, here's your payment.
Thank you very much. Let's see what you guys know of the Grey Fox.
Thief. I hope they string him up when they catch him. He's a slippery one, though. The beggars are his eyes and ears.
That's not surprising, of course. He owns a shop, which was, like, recently being robbed, so...
Don't know if this is true, but I heard a gang of all-female thieves is preying on the married menfolk of the town. What's going on with you?
I have heard that the great houses of...
Timothy LaRouche, late of the Black Dog, able seaman. I'll be staying ashore till my stash runs out, then it's off to sea once more. I heard that Velwyn Benerus is trying to sell off Benerus Manor. Hopefully the new owners will clean that eyesore up.
Nope, not interested in that house.
What's going...
Alright, let's go talk to Azan again. You picking his nose?
Hello there.
Is there an alchemist in this town? Because it's probably in the Mages Guild, aren't they? Because I need those ingredients to join the Mages Guild again. I need a lot of them. Some free steel here. I should have taken this. Ooh, that's one of my favorite books in the whole game. I'm gonna grab that. Disaster at Lawleth. Yeah, I'm gonna have to drop that new armor. God, that stuff's so heavy. Sweet. Skill book. Wolf Queen, book 8. I don't think I've ever read the Wolf Queen, or at least not all of it. Minotaur Horn, Daedra Heart, Elven Ceremonial Cuirass. Unfortunately, it's ceremonial, so it's not real. I'll take varieties of Daedra. Let's see what's in the lectern. Ooh, vintage. Alright then, let's go wait. Actually.
Well met.
Hello. What's going on with you?
They say that slavery has been abolished in Morrowind. House Dress and Hlalu have renounced the slave trade.
Ozan.
I hope I can help.
Contract.
I don't have anything for anyone in your rank. Check with Burz Grokash in Shadenhall. He might have something. I'm sorry. You're not yet ready for a promotion. Keep completing contracts and take care of any assigned duties.
Didn't I complete the contract, though? Let's take a look at this. Huh, it's not here anymore.
Bye. Good day.
So...
The prophet speaks true. This is the start of something terrible. I can feel it in my bones.
Pilgrimage, huh?
You too.
Greetings, Imperial.
Good to see you.
What's new with you?
These...
So many members in this guild hall. Alright, what should be my order of business now? I think I should go sell crap. And I want to go to the waterfront and mess around with some people. Do a couple fun things. Alright, let's wait again. So much waiting in this game. Part of this game that I really appreciate is that when you fast travel from one place to another, enough time passes in the game to simulate you having walked from that place to that place. I think it's like that in all Bethesda games.
May I help you?
If I'm not mistaken.
Have a look at my wares.
Which is a cool touch.
I'm sure there's something to suit you.
Yeah, 5 damage, 2 damage. Weak. Probably the difference in my blade or blunt. Yeah.
good price for a good customer.
I am holding too many books.
Aye.
Where is that finance department or whatever it's called? Red diamond jewelry? No, that's not it.
Anytime now. Speak.
I've been looking for you.
Office of Imperial Commerce. Hey,
Good
girl.
Venencia Melisea, Office of Imperial Commerce. You got complaints? Of course you got complaints. Who doesn't? I don't trust you.
Oops.
What?
No. Persuade.
Go ahead.
Alright. Wait, what? Disposition maxed. I have to bribe her?
Well, isn't that... Thank you. How kind. That will get you something. Why? I mean, of course. All I have available right now is a hovel on the waterfront.
You know I love hovels. I just happen to have 2,000 gold.
Really? Then you've just become a homeowner.
Like, just barely, especially
Here is
after
your
that
house
bribe.
key.
Thankfully, it was so cheap.
You'll find it in the waterfront district. It's not much to look at. You may want to spruce it up a bit with some furnishings. I'd suggest talking to Sergius Verus at Three Brothers Trade Goods in the Market District.
A general rule of thumb for Bethesda games is that when you buy a house, or at least in Oblivion, the furnishings usually cost about as much as the house cost.
The Grey Fox sounds like a dangerous thief.
In order to get all of the furnishings.
Farewell.
Ooh, we're broke again. Alright. Let's go to the Temple District and run down to the waterfront. Because it's a nice place to see. Look at that blue sky. Beautiful. These walls are so impressive.
You have my ear, citizen.
I was confused for a second there. I was like, whoa, I'm so close. It's because of this. Oh, jump. There we go. You see how far away I am? That's the door up there. But for some reason, you get teleported to here. I've always wondered, was this like a development failure? Like, did they not have enough time to complete this, so they just said screw it? Isn't this weird that there's no door here or anything, and it just seems so unfinished? It just goes right into the wall. You're right into that right there. And there's a path up here. If we go up this direction, we can find it. See? Path, but it just doesn't lead to the waterfront. Waterfront's an interesting area. I think it was a very... I don't know. In hindsight, you might be able to call this just lazy development to use the same, like, model. Like that wall, and then just put all the buildings inside the wall. But it's really cool, though. It looks really cool. It works well. There's the Arcane University. Yeah. Alright. And that's the bridge. Yeah, I don't know if the bridge has a name. I don't think so.
Ah! Ah!
Let's wait for 1 hour and get my health back. I don't like to do that. That's something that I consider sort of cheaty. But I'm not in combat or anything. I'm not in a dungeon, so it's no big deal. Alright. Little trick number 1. First of all, I'm going to go drop my stuff at my house, and then I'm going to show you something that you can do. And in a normal game, this is probably the first thing I would do. It's going to be nice to drop all these goddamn books.
Hi then.
Light armor. Talk to Marrow Rufus at the best defense.
It's the finest light armor selection in the city.
There we go. This is my hovel. Wait, are you shitting me? It doesn't have a single container? Nothing? Not even one container. God damn it, you get what you pay for, right? Shit. Alright.
Beautiful, isn't she? The Maria Elena. Damn fine ship. With a damn fine crew. I should know. I'm her first mate.
Okay. Listen to what
Now,
this lady
Rufus
says.
is my name. So believe me when I tell you we don't like it when people snoop around in our affairs. You get near that ship and my men will run you through.
Okay. So that was a promise. They have good weapons too. These cutlasses are a good early game sword.
Oh, hey, sweet lady of mine. Oh, I'll see you again. Yes,
So,
I'll see you again.
if
Sweet
I go on the
lady
ship,
of
they will
Wayrest,
attack
so
me.
fine.
Now, this character could probably already kill them because he's a heavily melee focused character. However, if you're making a magical character or a thief, at this stage in the game you probably couldn't fight these guys. So, hello Mr. Guard. I'm going to wait until his patrol goes right next to the ship. I'm going to get rid of this guy. Because I don't want him attacking. I'm going to be completely passive.
I think we're in for some hard times. The death of Uriel Septim and his heirs changes everything.
And let's go.
Oh,
Bam! The moment I step foot on the ship. And now I just let him kill them all. Oh, he was pretty low health. Now these cutlasses are worth a lot of money, but they're 25 pounds. They're exceptionally heavy. But like I said, in the very beginning of the game, you can come over here, you can have the guard kill these 3 guys, and you can get these swords for free. And it look really cool. Come on. Oh yeah, I got extra carry weight. Yeah. If I was swords focused, I could probably use this more effectively. But right now it only does 2 damage. And I can go into the captain's quarters now. And okay, yeah, no one's in here. For a second there I was like, I can't remember. Is there somebody in here? Nern root. I'm not going to pick up the Nern root because I'm not interested in that. That quest line. Now, something that I used to do before I knew better was I would have the guards kill these people, and then I would use this ship as my first home, a free home. However, this chest does reset, and I think this drawer does too. I don't think this one does, Captain whoever's booty, but it's very hard. So it's a bitch to get into. But if you can get into that, I don't think it resets. Let's see if he's got anything good here. Nope. But it's nice, right? And you can go off the back. Nope. Never mind. You go under, but I'm not sure if there's anything down here. I can't remember. Might be like ghosts or something. Yeah, there's a ton of food down here. I guess that makes sense. I mean, it is a ship. They need some kind of store of food. Get out of the way. Alright, my bag's about to fill up. Alright, let's go to the market district and try to offload some stuff. And then, I guess upgrade my house so I can drop stuff. Classic Elder Scrolls issues. I do not have a mortar and pestle. That's annoying. Alright, let's wait. Always waiting, you see what I mean? I somehow managed to catch this area of the city at nighttime. I should be a vampire. Oh man, it was soul crushing the first game I played where I became a vampire accidentally because I didn't know what was going on in the game. And then you can never go outside again, and I think there is a way to get rid of vampirism, but it's like incredibly difficult. And this was back in the day before Google, so like I couldn't just Google how do I get rid of vampirism. It's 2005. This game came out. I have everything for the.
Can I interest you in some of my wares?
I'll just take one mortar and pestle, please. course I am. Let's see. The red wart flower is the thing that I need to save. Let's go look at my quest. Mage's Guild. 20 red wart flower and 20 dragon's tongue. I have 2 red wart flower and I have no dragon's tongue. So, yeah. Alright, let's try to do some careful alchemy-ing. Do not use that. Gauge your heart. Nice. Garlic never goes with anything. Bone meal with bone meal? Minotaur horn with nightshade. Alright, I think that's as good as it's gonna get.
I have everything. Can I interest you in some of my wares?
Yes, actually, I need to see if you have any of the stuff that I need to buy. Dragon's tongue. And red wart flower. Thank you. Now you can buy my crap from me, please. Ooh, did I make that? Damn, that's good.
And a fun. You've made a good bit of gold. Make me a better offer. That's more than I'd use. That's... And you've got a great deal there. Thank you.
Cool.
Farewell.
Did I make any money? A couple hundred. Nothing too impressive,
How goes
unfortunately. Oh, what's up, dude?
Antus Vannon.
Nice robe.
Retired. Sleep late and read trashy books. I don't keep up with the Mage's Guild affairs anymore.
Tell me about the Imperial City.
I spent 40 years at the Arcane University. Good years, but I don't miss it. Now I'm completely useless, and proud of it. It's a simple job. Go get a journal from Fallen Rock Cave. Shouldn't that be a cinch for a fighter guild contract?
I guess so, theoretically.
Take care.
What you got? Got a sword? Is that a steel sword? Yeah. Nothing too impressive. Do I have anything else to sell? Yeah, let's sell these steel cutlasses.
I hope I can. Good that you want to get better.
Too bad I
Have a
don't
look
have any
around.
money.
You won't find better prices at... An excellent bargain. Tell you. Good day.
Okay, 174. Not bad. Let's go ahead and hit up that third version of Brief History of the Empire. The first volume of this series told in brief the story of the succession of the first 8 emperors of the Septim dynasty, from Tiber I to Katira II. The second volume described the War of the Red Diamond and the 6 emperors that followed in its aftermath, from Uriel III to Cassander I. At the end of that volume, it was described how the Emperor Cassandra's half-brother Uriel IV assumed the throne of the Empire of Tamriel. It will be recalled that Uriel IV was not a Septim by birth. His mother, though she reigned as empress for many years, was a dark elf married to a true Septim emperor, Pelagius III. Uriel's father was actually Katara I's consort after Pelagius' death. A Breton nobleman named Galavir Lariette, before taking the throne of Empire. Cassandra I had ruled the kingdom of Wayrest, but poor health had forced him to retire. Cassandra had no children, so he legally adopted his half-brother Uriel and abdicated the kingdom. Several years later, Cassandra inherited the empire at the death of his mother. 3 years after that, Uriel once again found himself the recipient of Cassandra's inheritance. Uriel IV's reign was a long and difficult one, despite being a legally adopted member of the Septim family, and despite the Lariette family's high position. Indeed, they were distant cousins of the Septims. Few of the Elder Council could be persuaded to accept him fully as a blood descendant of Tiber. The council had assumed much responsibility during Katira I's long reign and Cassandra I's short reign. And a strong-willed alien monarch like Uriel IV found it impossible to command their unswerving fealty. Time and again, the council and emperor were at odds, and time and again, the council won the battles. Since the days of Pelagius III, the Elder Council had consisted of the wealthiest men and women in the empire, and the power they wielded was conclusive. The council's last victory over Uriel IV was posthumous. Andorak, Uriel IV's son, was disinherited by vote of council, and a cousin more closely related to the original Semto line was proclaimed Sepphoris II in the Third Era, 247. For the first 9 years of Sepphoris II's reign, those loyal to Andorak battled the imperial forces, in an act that the sage Arantine called Tiber Septim's heart beating no more. The council granted Andorak the High Rock Kingdom of Shorenhelm to end the war, and Andorak's descendants still rule there. By and large, Sepphoris II had foes that demanded more of his attention than Andorak. From out of a Chimerian nightmare, in the words of Arantine, a man who called himself the Camoran usurper led an army of Daedra and undead warriors on a rampage through Valenwood, conquering kingdom after kingdom. Few could resist his onslaughts, and as month turned to bloody month, in the year 249, even fewer tried. Sepphoris II sent more and more mercenaries into Hammerfell to stop the usurper's northward march, but they were bribed or slaughtered and raised as undead. The story of Cameron usurper deserves a book of its own. It is recommended that the reader find Palax Ithir's The Fall of the Usurper for more detail. In short, however, the destruction of the forces of the usurper had little to do with the efforts of the emperor. The result was a great regional victory and an increase in hostility toward the seemingly inefficacious empire. Uriel V, Sepphoris II's son and successor, swiveled opinion back toward the latent power of the empire, turning the attention of Tamriel away from internal strife. Uriel V embarked on a series of invasions beginning almost from the moment he took the throne in the 268. era, Third Era. Uriel V conquered Roskria in 271, Cathnoqui in 276, and Ninsli in 279, and Esroniet in 284. In 288, he embarked on his most ambitious enterprise, the invasion of the continent Kingdom of Akavir. This ultimately proved a failure. For 2 years later, Uriel V was killed in Akavir on a battlefield of Lonith. Nevertheless, Uriel V holds a reputation second only to Tiber as one of the two great warrior emperors of Tamriel. The last four emperors, beginning with Uriel V's infant son, are described in the fourth and final volume of this series. Pretty cool book. Now, normally I only read one book per video, because honestly I think people probably don't want to listen to me read because I don't read very well. However, Disaster at Lonoth is one of my favorite books in the whole game, and I really want to read it because I haven't read it in a long time. So this is as much for my own enjoyment as for entertainment purposes. Report of the Imperial Commission on the Disaster at Lonoth. Lord Patried, Chairman, Part 1 Preparations. The Emperor's plans for the invasion of Akavir were laid in the 270s, when he began the conquest of the small island kingdoms that lie between Tamriel and Akavir. With the fall of Black Harbor in Esroniet in 282, Uriel V was already looking ahead to the ultimate prize. He immediately ordered extensive renovations to the port, which would serve as a marshalling point for the invasion force and as the main supply source throughout the campaign. At this time, he also began the construction of the many large ocean-going transports that would be needed for the final crossing to Akavir, in which the navy was previously deficient. Thus, it can be seen that the Emperor's preparations for the invasion were laid well in advance, before even the conquest of Esroniet was complete, and was not a sudden whim as some have charged. When Prince Bashoman yielded Esroniet to imperial authority in 284, the Emperor's full attention could be devoted to planning for the Akaviri campaign. Naval expeditions were dispatched in 285 and 286 to scout the sea lanes and coastlands of Akavir, and various imperial intelligence agents, both magical and mundane, were employed to gather information. On the basis of all this information, the kingdom of Tassiliki in the southwest of Akavir was selected as the initial target for the invasion. Meanwhile, the Emperor was gathering his expeditionary force. A new Far East fleet was created for the campaign, which for a time dwarfed the rest of the navy. It is said to be the most powerful fleet ever assembled in the history of Tamriel. The 5th, 7th, 10th, and 14th legions were selected for the initial landing, with the 9th and 17th to follow as reinforcements once the beachhead was secured. While this may seem to the layman a relatively small fraction of the army's total manpower, it must be remembered that the expeditionary force would have to be maintained at the end of a long and tenuous supply line. In addition, the Emperor and the army command believed that the invasion would not be strongly opposed, at least at first. Perhaps most crucially, the Navy had only enough heavy transport capacity to move 4 legions at a time. It should be noted here that the Commission does not find fault with the Emperor's preparations for the invasion. Based on the information available prior to the invasion, which, while obviously deficient in hindsight, great effort had been made to accumulate, the Commission believes that the Emperor did not act recklessly or imprudently. Some have argued that the expeditionary force was too small. The Commission believes that, on the contrary, even if shipping could have been found to transport and supply more legions, an impossibility without crippling the trade of the entire empire, this would have merely added to the scale of the disaster. It would not have averted it. Neither could the rest of the empire be denuded of legions. The memory of the Canorian usurper was still fresh. Camoran usurper was fresh, and the emperor believed, and this commission agrees, that the security of the empire precluded a larger concentration of military force outside of Tamriel. If anything, the commission believes that the expeditionary force was too large. Despite the creation of 2 new legions during this reign, and the recreation of the 5th, the loss of the expeditionary force left the empire in a dangerously weak position relative to the provinces. as the current situation makes all too clear. This suggests that the invasion of Akavir was beyond the Empire's current strength. Even if the Emperor could have fielded and maintained a larger force in Akavir, the Empire may have disintegrated behind him. Part 2. The invasion of Akavir. So, we just learned about the preparations, and it was very interesting to I love the world building here. Let me continue. The expeditionary force left Black Harbor on the 23rd Rain's Hand, 288, and with fair weather landed on Akavir after 6 weeks at sea. The landing site was a small Taseki port at the mouth of a large river, chosen for its proximity to Tamriel as well as its location in a fertile river valley, giving easy access to the interior as well as good foraging for the army. All went well at first. The Taseki had abandoned the town when the expeditionary force approached, so they took possession of it and renamed it Septimia, the first colony of the new imperial province of Akavir. While the engineers fortified the town and expanded the port facilities to serve the Far East Fleet, the Emperor marched inland with 2 legions. The surrounding land was reported to be rich, well-watered fields, and meeting no resistance, the army took the next city upriver, also abandoned. This was refounded as Lonith, and the Emperor established his headquarters there, being much larger than Septimia and better located to dominate the surrounding countryside. The expeditionary force had yet to meet any real resistance, although the legions were constantly shadowed by mounted enemy patrols, which prevented any but large scouting parties from leaving the main body of the army. One thing the Emperor sorely lacked was cavalry. Due to the limited space on the transport fleet, for the time being, the battle mages made up for this with magical reconnaissance. The Emperor now sent out envoys to try to contact the Taseki king, or whoever ruled this land, but his messengers never returned. In retrospect, the Commission believes that valuable time was wasted in this effort while the army was stalled at Lonith, which could have been better spent in advancing quickly while the enemy was still apparently surprised by the invasion. However, the Emperor believed at the time that the Taseki could be overawed by the Empire's power, and he might win a province by negotiation with no need for a serious fight. Meanwhile, the 4 legions were busy building a road between Septimia and Lonith, setting up fortified guard posts along the river and fortifying both cities' defenses, activities which would serve them well later. Due to their lack of cavalry, scouting was limited, and communication between the 2 cities constantly threatened by enemy raiders, with which the legions were still unable to come to grips. The original plan had been to bring the 2 reinforcing legions across as soon as the initial landing had secured a port, but the fateful decision was now taken to delay their arrival and instead begin using the fleet to transport colonists. The Emperor and the Council agreed that, due to the complete abandonment of the conquered area by its native population, colonists were needed to work the fields so that the expeditionary force would not have to rely entirely on the fleet for supplies. In addition, unrest had broken out in Yenesilia, athwart the supply route to Akavir, and the Council believed that the 9th and 7th Legions would be better used in repacifying those territories and securing the expeditionary forces' supply lines. The civilian colonists and their supplies began arriving at Septimia in mid-Hearthfire, and they took over the preparations of the fields, which had been started by the legionnaires, for a spring crop. A number of cavalry mounts were also brought over this time, and the raids on the 2 imperial colonies subsequently fell off. The Taseki emissaries also finally arrived in Lonith, purportedly to begin peace negotiations, and the expeditionary force settled in for what was expected to be a quiet winter. At this time, the Council urged the Emperor to return to Tamriel with the fleet to deal with many pressing matters of the Empire while the army was in winter quarters. But the Emperor decided that it would be best to remain in Akavir. This turned out to be fortunate, because a large portion of the fleet, including the Emperor's flagship, was destroyed by an early winter storm during the homeward voyage. The winter storm season of 288 to 289 was unusually prolonged and exceptionally severe, and prevented the fleet from returning to Akavir as planned with additional supplies. This was reported to the Emperor via Battle Mage, and it was agreed that the expeditionary force could survive on what supplies it had on hand until the spring. Part 3. The destruction of the expeditionary force. I love how it sets up all the logistics. The winter weather in Akavir was also much more severe than expected. Due to the supply problems and the addition of thousands of civilians, the expeditionary force was on tight rations. To make matters worse, the Dudeicle raiders returned in force and harried any foraging and scouting parties outside the wall of the two cities. Several watch forts on the road between Septimia and Lonith were captured during blizzards, and the rest had to be abandoned as untenable. As a result, communication between the two cities had to be conducted entirely by magical means, a continuing strain on the Legion's battle mages. On Fifth Sun's dawn, a large entourage of Dudeicle arrived at Lonith, claimed to bring a peace offering from the Dudeicle king. That night, these traitorous envoys murdered the guards at one of the city gates and led in a strong party of their comrades who were waiting outside the city walls. Their clear intention was to assassinate the Emperor, foiled only by the vigilance and courage of the troopers in the 10th who were guarding his palace. Once the alarm was raised, the Dudeicle inside the city were hunted down and killed to the last man. Needless to say, this was the end of negotiations between the Emperor and the Dudeicle. The arrival of spring only brought worse troubles. Instead of the unexpected spring rains, a hot, dry wind began to blow from the east, continuing with varying strength through the entire summer. The crops failed, and even the river, which in the previous year had been navigable by sea boats, far upstream of Lonith, was completely dried up by sun's height. It is unknown if this was due to a previously unknown weather pattern unique to Akavir, or if the Dudeicle manipulated the weather through magical means. The Commission leans toward the former conclusion, as there is no direct evidence of the Dudeicle possessing such fearsome arcane power, but the latter possibly cannot be entirely ruled out. Due to prolonged bad weather, the supply fleet was late in setting out from Black Harbor. It finally left port in the early Second Siege, but was again severely mauled by storms and limped into Septimia 8 weeks later, much reduced. Because of the increasingly desperate supply situation in Akavir, the Emperor dispatched most of his battle mage corps with the fleet to assist it in weathering the storms, which seemed likely to continue all summer. At this time, the council urged the Emperor to abandon the invasion and return to Tamriel with the expeditionary force, but he again refused, noting that the fleet was no longer large enough to transport all 4 legions at once. The Commission agrees that leaving 1 or more legions behind in Akavir to await the return of the fleet would have damaged army morale. But the Commission also notes that the loss of 1 legion would have been preferable to the loss of the entire expeditionary force. It is the unanimous opinion of the Commission that this was the last point at which complete disaster might have been averted. Once the decision was made to send the fleet back for reinforcements and supplies, events proceeded to their inevitable conclusion. From this point on, much less is known about what transpired in Akavir. With most of the battle mages assisting the fleet, communication between the expeditionary force and Tamriel was limited, especially as the situation in Akavir worsened and the remaining battle mages had their powers stretched to the limits, attending to all the needs of the Legion. However, it appears that the Dudeicle may also have been actively interfering with the mages in some unknown manner. Some of the mages in Akavir reported their powers being abnormally weak, and the mages of the War College in Cyrodiil, who were handling communications for the council, reported problems linking up with their compatriots in Akavir, even between masters and pupils of long training. The Commission urges that the War College make a particular study of the arcane powers of the Dudeicle, should the Emperor ever come in contact with Akavir again. Conflict. What is known is that the Emperor marched out of Lonith in mid-sun's height, leaving only small garrisons to hold the cities. He had learned that the Dudeicle were massing their forces on the other side of a mountain range to the north, and he intended to smash their army before it could gather full strength, and capture their supplies, of which he was still in desperate need. This rapid advance seems to have taken the Dudeicle by surprise. and the expeditionary force crossed the mountains and fell on their camp, routing the Dudeicle army and capturing its leader, a noble of some kind. But the Emperor was soon forced to retreat, and the legions suffered heavily on their retreat to Loneth. The Emperor now found himself besieged in Loneth, cut off from the small garrison at Septimia, which was also besieged. By this time, it seems that the efforts of the few remaining battle mages were devoted entirely to creating water to keep the army alive, a skill not normally emphasized at the War College. The fleet had arrived safely back to Black Harbor thanks to the Battle Mage Corps, but all attempts to return to Akavir were frustrated by a series of ever more savage storms that battered Esroniet throughout the rest of 289. The Council's last contact with the Emperor was in early Frostfall. By Evening Star, the Council was extremely worried about the situation in Akavir and ordered the fleet to sail regardless of the risk. Despite the continued storms, the fleet managed to press on to Akavir. Hope was raised when contact was made with the Emperor's battle mage, who reported that Loneth still held out. Plans were quickly laid for expeditionary force, to break out of Loneth and fall back to Septimia, where the fleet would meet them. This was the last direct contact with the expeditionary force. The fleet arrived in Septimia to find its garrison under savage assault from a large Dudeicle army. The battle mages with the fleet threw back the enemy long enough for the survivors to embark and the fleet to withdraw. The few survivors of the expeditionary force who reached Septimia told how the Emperor had led the army out of Loneth by night 2 days earlier, successfully breaking through the enemy lines but then being surrounded by overwhelming forces on the road to Septimia. They told of a heroic last stand by the Emperor and the 10th Legion, which allowed a remnant of the 14th to reach Septimia. 2 survivors of the 10th arrived in Septimia that night, having slipped through the enemy lines during their undisciplined victory celebration. These men confirmed having seen the Emperor die, cut down by enemies' arrows, as he rallied the 10th shield wall. Part 4. Conclusion. The Commission believes that the invasion of Akavir was doomed from the start for several reasons, none of which could have been foreseen beforehand, unfortunately. Despite extensive intelligence gathering, the expeditionary force was clearly unprepared for the situation in Akavir. The unexpected weather which plagued the army and navy was particularly disastrous. Without the loss of a majority of the Far East fleet during the campaign, the expeditionary force could have been withdrawn in 289. The weather also forced the Emperor to assign most of his battle mage corps to the fleet, leaving him without their valuable assistance during the fighting which soon followed. And of course, the unexpected drought which struck Loneth during 289 dashed the hopes of supplying the army locally, and left the expeditionary force in an untenable situation when besieged in Loneth. The Dudeicle were also much stronger than intelligence reports had suggested. The information on the size of the army the Dudeicle were eventually able to field against the expeditionary force is vague, as the only serious fighting took place after regular communications were cut off between the Emperor and the Council. Nevertheless, it seems likely that the Dudeicle outnumbered the Emperor's forces by several times, as they were able to force 4 crack legions into retreat and then keep them under siege for several months. As this was stated previously, the Commission declines to criticize the initial decision to invade Akavir. Based on what was known at the time, the plan seemed sound. It was only with the benefit of hindsight does it become obvious that the invasion had very little chance of success. Nevertheless, the Commission believes several valuable lessons can be taken from the disaster. First, the Dudeicle might have extremely powerful arcane forces at their command. The possibility that they may have manipulated the weather across a vast region seems incredible, and it should be noted that 3 commissioners strongly objected to this paragraph even being included in the report, but the Commission believes that this matter deserves urgent investigation. The potential danger is such that even the slight possibility must be taken seriously. Second, the Dudeicle appeared to possess no navy to speak of. The expeditionary force was never threatened by sea, and the Far East fleet fought nothing but the weather. Indeed, initial plans called for a portion of the fleet to remain in Akavir for use in coastal operations, but in the event that there were very few places where the large vessels of the fleet could approach land due to innumerable reefs, sandbars, islands, etc., that infested the coastal waters north and south of Septimia, due to the utter lack of trees in the plain, Around Septimia and Loneth, the expeditionary force was unable to build smaller vessels which could have navigated the small coastal waters. Any future military expeditions against Akavir would do well to consider some way of bringing a means for inshore naval operations in order to exploit this clear advantage over the Dudeicle, an advantage that was sadly unexploited by the expeditionary force. Third, much longer term study needs to be made of Akavir before another invasion could even be contemplated. The information gathered over the 4 years prior to the invasion was extensive, but clearly inadequate. The weather conditions were completely unexpected. The Dudeicle much stronger than expected, and the attempted negotiations by the Emperor with the Dudeicle a disaster. Akavir proved alien beyond expectation, and the Commission believes any future attempt to invade Akavir should not be contemplated without much greater knowledge of the conditions, politics, and people of that continent than presently obtained. Finally, the Commission unanimously concludes that, given what we know now, any attempt to invade Akavir is folly, at least in the present state of the Empire. The Emperor's legions are needed at home. One day, a peaceful, united empire will return to Akavir and exact severe retribution for the disaster at Loneth and for our fallen emperor. But that day is not now, nor in the foreseeable future. Truly, this is my favorite book in the entire game. It's so good to me that I'm not even going to drop it. I'm going to go put it in my house. I think the reason it's so good is because it's so grounded and it's so practical. It talks about the information gathering, it talks about the logistics, it talks about the strength of the expeditionary force, and even how veteran the force is, talking about them being crack legions. It talks about how the Emperor was a warrior, possibly the last warrior. We heard that in the history book, History of the Empire. The last warrior emperor died at Loneth. And how the invasion of Akavir was the last step in the Empire's, desires of conquest. It's great to read about the battle mages being used logically. I think that's something that's so important in fantasy that's so often overlooked, is practical use of magic and hard magic systems. Now, the system in this world isn't very hard. It's okay. It's not bad. But it's way better than Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter. Those are like ultra soft. But a situation like this where the battle mages in an army can do a million things more than just throw a fireball. And in a situation where the army is in dire need of X, Y, and Z, for example, just something like communication, or controlling the weather, or creating water in a siege environment, of course the battle mages are committed 100% to that. And even if it means that they're not on the front line helping where they would be a great benefit, at the end of the day, everyone dies if they don't create water, or the whole fleet will be sunk if they don't help control the storms. And when you have battle mages for communication, instant communication, obviously sending a letter or something like this, or sending a messenger, just doesn't seem logistically, worth it. So, I love that book so much. I'm not sure what... in the next one, we'll finish off the History of the Empire version 4, and then we'll go on to something more interesting like Dwemer history, or Frontier Conquest is a very good one as well. But that is where we're going to end today. Thank you all so much for watching again. I hope you love the videos. I hope you love this game as much as I do. I mean, look at even like the moss on the walls. It's really amazing. I think this is the height of Bethesda's work. I've never played any of their other games that touches me like this one does. There's just something about this one. It just has soul to it. It has so much character. Thank you all so much for watching. Like, share, subscribe, comment down below. Or don't. I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.